Today's episode is 5 everyday micro behaviors that instantly boost your credibility. Words have power, but even more so when people see your presence and experience you, they decide very quickly if they trust you or they like you. I can remember years ago when I was doing a presentation skills training when I worked for a company, and this guy came in, shook my hand, and I remember the very first thing in my mind was, oh my gosh, this guy is going to be so challenging. He came across so rough and just unapproachable, and through just his facial expression. And his voice was fine. I shouldn't say rough, but basically that was the impression. Isn't that interesting? Even as I'm editing myself now, as I'm talking about this, how he came across in a way that was unfriendly. And it definitely made me think this is going to be a really long day with this guy in the class. But he ended up being the nicest person. And suddenly I realized, oh my goodness, this guy has no awareness. So thankfully, we recorded him. He did a presentation and then he saw it back and he said, oh my gosh, I look so unfriendly and so intimidating. And I said, I know that is the same thing that I thought when I met you. Of course, I would never have said that to him otherwise because I wanted him to see it himself. But it was really a good reminder of how we have oftentimes we have no awareness of the experience we create for others. And so a big part of what I'm going to talk about today is focusing on these 5 very specific, tangible tips that can help you boost your credibility. So I want to remind you that credibility, truthfully, isn't built in these big dramatic moments. It's really the tiny everyday behaviors that most people don't even really think about. And so I also, the reason why I said micro behaviors is that each of these are small, but they have an outsized impact on how others perceive your confidence, your credibility, your clarity, and your leadership. But when you start using them consistently, people don't just hear you, they trust you, they follow you, they feel influenced by you. And the best part is that you can start practicing these right away. There's no extra time or extra prep or, frankly, extra talent required. These tips are very tangible and skill based. So it's just a few intentional shifts that will help you show up as the most powerful and grounded version of yourself. So save these for your next meeting, interview, pitch, presentation, whatever it might be. So let's jump into this now. Let's start with number 1. Pause before you speak. Pausing is so important, and yet a lot of us don't do it enough. Part of the biggest challenge that I've noticed in working with people is that when we're speaking, it feels like a lifetime that we pause. But to the audience, it's barely anything. The disparity gap here is so strong. And what I mean by that is the disparity between how you think you're coming across versus how you actually are coming across. So you might think, oh my gosh, this is forever. I can't believe this. This is so embarrassing. Versus on their side, they're probably not even noticing it. But what's happening is a positive effect of them absorbing what you said, of them being able to stay with you. They are not tuning you out because they're able to track with you. Some people speak so fast that the audience simply can't absorb. And if it takes too many calories to figure out what you're trying to say and what the point is, or just simply I can't keep up with this person. I actually just thought of something. I was at a networking event recently and I was having a lovely conversation with someone, and another woman came by and just started rattling off information. Blah, 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 and I politely excused myself. And then she left a few minutes later. I had gotten up to get food. And then the woman that I had been talking to said, oh my gosh, I wasn't sure what to do with that. And she said, and then you left. And I was laughing. I said, oh, I did come back because I wanted to save you. But it was a great example of how simply in a day-to-day environment, we can be just too much with all of our talking and not taking a moment to settle down, pause, allow the other person to absorb, and perhaps even more importantly, in a conversation, to stop and ask a question. So remembering that even a 1 to 2 second pause signals confidence, not hesitation. It shows you're thoughtful, composed, and not scrambling for the right words. Let's move on to the next one. Start with the bottom line. Bottom line up front, BLUF. You've heard me say it before if you've been here before. BLUF stands for bottom line up front, and it is used by the US military to help people get to the point quickly. The point here is that you want to lead with your point, then add context later. You don't want to data dump on your audience or put a bunch of detail before you even mention the point. Clear communicators earn trust faster because people understand exactly where they stand. The next one is to lower your pitch at the end of your sentences. Make sure that you are speaking with authority and conviction, and a very simple way to do that is to punctuate. What ends up happening when we speak is that we forget that punctuation exists. We speak too fast. We don't speak with punctuation where we insert commas and periods and or exclamation points or question marks, often in the right spot. What happens is we tend to just have a run-on sentence. And I will tell you, I have coached thousands of people, and I can tell you also that 99.9% of them, when they do their introduction, it becomes a run-on sentence. And in addition to that, why this matters is because they don't put a period in between. So this blends really beautifully with what the tip that we mentioned earlier around pausing. Let me give you an example. Hi, I'm Karen Laos, and I'm originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco. It's a bunch of upspeak when it should be a period. So let me give you an example to counteract that. Instead, I would say this. Hi, I'm Karen Laos. I'm originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco. Very different experience, and all I am doing is putting a period at the end of my sentences. And what that means then in this specific tip is I am lowering my pitch. So you know she is done. A way to test yourself on this is to record yourself. First of all, I always recommend that, and hear how you come across with your intro. A way to tell the difference, because I have some people that I coach that we listen back or watch back their video and they don't even realize, even then when they're hearing it, they don't hear it. But how you can tell the difference is if I said to you, what kind of car do you own? You're going to say it like you mean it. Honda Accord, Mercedes, whatever it is. That is something to see or hear so that you can know, okay, we're not doing upspeak here. So a lot of times when I'm facilitating this in person, I will say, okay, ask each other, what kind of car do you own? And then you can feel the muscle memory in your body of what it's like to put that period at the end of the sentence. It's not about the car. It's about that you know that you know. The next tip is to keep your shoulders down and unlocked. Too often what happens is our shoulders get way up to our ears, and this is a great reminder to breathe at the same time. So tension reads as stress. Relaxed shoulders create a calm, confident presence in any room. So remember to put those shoulders back, and adding a little context to this too is when you're not using gestures, put your hands down at your sides if you're standing and presenting. This might feel like the weirdest thing ever, but it is so powerful to show confidence. So hands shouldn't be stuck in front of you, clasped, or in that fig leaf position where you're clasping your hands and putting your hands together or crossing your arms. All of that takes away from your presence. So the way to look the most open and inviting is to have your hands open, have them down at your sides, and when you are gesturing, to not clasp them. The last tip is to make eye contact in intervals of 3 to 5 seconds. Sometimes it's challenging to see an entire group of people because when you're presenting, it can feel like this big blob of people. So remember, our job when we are speaking is to connect one by one, even though you're speaking to a whole group of people. The way this works is you find one person in the audience, one at a time. You don't want to stay locked into one person the whole time, but 3 to 5 seconds per person gives you the optimal level of connection. The cool thing about this is if you're looking at one person in the eye and presenting, all the people in that periphery are going to feel like you're looking at them too. It's a really cool thing. So let me review here. Again, micro behaviors, these will all instantly boost your credibility. First one, pause before you speak. And remember how important that silence is for your audience to absorb what you said and to make you come across as more confident. 2, start with the bottom line, BLUF, bottom line up front. 3, lower your pitch at the end of your sentences. Make sure you're punctuating just like you would in the written word so that you can have that authority in your voice. And next one is keep your shoulders down and unlocked. Remember that presence physically matters. Take those deep breaths before you present, before you walk into the room, and that will help regulate your nervous system as well. And then lastly, make eye contact in intervals of 3 to 5 seconds. I want to remind you as well that I have a couple of things in the works here. Number one, if you know any event planners looking for a speaker, that would be lovely to be connected if you think I could be of service there. I also have a group that is starting in January called the Powerhouse. And this is going to be 8 to 10 women in executive level positions who are wanting to overcome self-doubt and speak with more confidence in any situation, to speak with power and lead with presence. Would love to talk with anybody that you might want to refer. I've got a few spots left for that one. And meantime, as a reminder, I've got a book, feel free to look at that, called Trust Your Own Voice. And if there is any way that I can be of service to you, please feel free to reach out. I also have an email tips list that I send out every week. So you can get one micro tip that can help you immediately in your communication, which then leads to your confidence. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.